The ISS Relentless had been a joke, a relic of a bygone era that had no place in the modern Navy. Once a proud battleship, she had been mothballed in orbit above Titan, her systems outdated, her weapons obsolete. Commanders laughed at the idea of even retrofitting her. Why waste resources on a pile of scrap when the Terran Navy had sleek, state-of-the-art warships at their disposal? Then, the Zal-Zarthi invaded. Humanity, outgunned and outmaneuvered, found itself on the brink of annihilation. The enemy fleet was technologically superior in every way. Their plasma weapons melted through Earth's defenses like butter. Their shields shrugged off Terran counterattacks, and their hyperdrives allowed them to strike anywhere at will. The war should have been over in weeks. But the one thing the Zal-Zarthi didn't account for? Human ingenuity. A desperate plan took shape. The Relentless was to be pulled from the scrap heap, not to fight conventionally, but to be transformed into something entirely new. The ship's old systems were too slow, its reactors too weak, so they were replaced. Not with conventional upgrades, but with hacked-together experimental tech that had been deemed too risky, too unpredictable for frontline warships. They ripped out the standard AI and replaced it with an adaptive, self-learning combat intelligence. They stripped away outdated weapons and fitted the ship with experimental railguns that fired at near-light speed, bypassing energy shields entirely. The ancient armor plating? Reinforced with exotic alloys scavenged from captured enemy wreckage. The Zal-Zarthi relied on sleek, advanced warships with delicate internal systems. The Relentless was built like a brawler, designed to take a hit and keep swinging. The final addition was the most dangerous, a human-mind interface. The ship wouldn't just be controlled by an AI, it would think like a human, fight like a human, adapt, outthink, and outmaneuver an enemy that believed itself superior. When the Zal-Zarthi attacked Earth's last line of defense, expecting an easy victory, they were met with something they had never faced before. A warship that fought like a cornered beast, using brutal, unpredictable tactics no programmed fleet could counter. The Relentless was no longer a relic. It was a nightmare given form, the embodiment of human defiance. The Zal-Zarthi came expecting to conquer. Instead, they found hell itself waiting. The Zal-Zarthi fleet descended upon Earth's last defenses, confident in their superiority. Their warships, sleek and deadly, moved with the precision of a species that had never known defeat. Against them, the remnants of the Terran Navy braced for the inevitable. They had seen entire fleets wiped out before, and they knew this battle would be no different. Then, the Relentless arrived. It didn't look like much. Its hull was scarred, its design blocky and brutish compared to the elegant curves of Zal-Zarthi warships. The enemy commanders laughed, an old Terran battleship, barely space-worthy, sent to its final death. But the laughter stopped when the Relentless moved. With a sudden burst of impossible acceleration, the ship broke formation, diving straight into the heart of the enemy fleet. The Zal-Zarthi hesitated. This wasn't how humans fought. Their ships relied on coordination, fleet tactics, and careful positioning. But the Relentless? It fought like a predator, a railgun fired, a single tungsten slug, moving so fast that it didn't give off the usual energy signature of human weapons. The lead Zal-Zarthi dreadnought didn't even have time to raise shields before the shot ripped through its hull, piercing straight through its core. The ship exploded, sending debris hurtling into its own formation. The Zal-Zarthi reeled. This was no ordinary human warship. Inside the Relentless, Captain Elias Voss grinned as he felt the ship respond to his thoughts. The neural link hummed in his skull, the combat AI whispering strategies into his mind. He wasn't piloting the ship. He was the ship. He could feel the enemy targeting him, their firing solutions locking on. He twisted the Relentless at the last second, dodging in a way that should have been impossible for a ship of its size. Targeting array locked on multiple hostiles, the AI murmured. Permission to fire? Let them have it, Voss growled. The Relentless unleashed hell. Railguns, point defense lasers, missile swarms, all of it launched in a perfectly calculated burst of destruction. The Zalzarthi warships, built for elegant long-range engagements, found themselves in a brutal close-quarters brawl. Their shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, were useless against the sheer kinetic force of human firepower. Another enemy cruiser shattered under a sustained barrage. A Zalzarthi destroyer, panicked, tried to retreat. Voss didn't let it. He fired maneuvering thrusters, cutting off its escape, and slammed a full spread of missiles into its engines. It was over in seconds. But the Relentless wasn't done. The Zalzarthi fleet had planned for a standard human resistance, a desperate, disorganized last stand. They had not planned for a single warship to tear through their ranks like a rabid beast. The enemy admiral tried to coordinate a counterattack, ordering his fleet to surround the Relentless, to box it in. Voss saw it coming before they even made their move. He grinned. AI, reroute power to the main drive. We're going through them. Warning, this maneuver has an 87% chance of hull damage. Do it. The Relentless roared forward, straight into the heart of the enemy formation. Zalzarthi warships scrambled to get out of the way, but they were too slow. The Relentless collided with an enemy frigate, smashing through its hull like a hammer through glass. Fire and debris trailed in its wake. The enemy fleet was in chaos now. The Relentless wasn't fighting like a warship. It was fighting like a human, dirty, unpredictable, and it was winning. For the first time in history, the Zalzarthi knew fear. The Relentless carved through the enemy fleet like a wolf tearing through a flock of blind sheep. The Zalzarthi, so used to dominating their battles with superior firepower and precision, had never faced anything like this. Their fleet was in disarray, destroyers colliding as they scrambled to evade, cruisers desperately trying to reposition, dreadnoughts struggling to lock onto a ship that moved like a demon. Inside the neural interface, Captain Elias Voss felt every pulse of energy, every twist of momentum. The Relentless wasn't just a warship anymore. It was an extension of his own instincts, a weapon wielded by the mind of a human who refused to lose. Multiple enemy vessels converging on our position, the AI whispered in his skull. Its voice was calm, but he could feel the urgency behind it. They have adapted. Predictive algorithms suggest a high probability of flanking maneuvers. Voss smirked. Good. Let them try. The Zalzarthi admiral, realizing his fleet was on the verge of collapse, changed tactics. Instead of attacking in a disorganized frenzy, he pulled back his capital ships, forcing the smaller warships to form a deadly net around the Relentless. If the humans wanted to fight like animals, they would cage the beast. Voss saw it happen in real time. The enemy was trying to box him in, cutting off every escape route. He had no reinforcements, no backup, which meant he didn't have to hold back. AI, initiate the overload protocol. For the first time, the AI hesitated. This maneuver carries extreme risk. Do it! Power surged through the ship. Deep in the bowels of the Relentless, experimental reactors pushed beyond their limits, channeling raw energy into the weapons grid. The railguns hummed at maximum charge. Plasma conduits glowed an angry red. The ship shuddered, groaning under the strain, and then the Relentless attacked. In a single instant, every railgun fired at once. Tungsten slugs, accelerated to near light speed, ripped through the enemy formation. The Zalzarthi, expecting another brawling skirmish, had no time to react. A dreadnought exploded from a direct hit to its reactor. A cruiser's hull split open like an eggshell, spilling its crew into the void. A squadron of smaller fighters was obliterated in a storm of hyper-velocity projectiles, their shields as useless as paper against the sheer force of kinetic destruction. Voss didn't let up. He twisted the ship into a roll, thrusters flaring, launching a salvo of missiles into the path of the closing enemy ships. They detonated in a chain reaction, a storm of fire and debris tearing through the blockade before it could close completely. The Relentless was free. The Zalzarthi admiral watched in horror as his carefully constructed trap collapsed. His forces were in disarray, and he knew. He had lost control of the battle. And then, for the first time in the war, the Zalzarthi did something they had never done before. They ran. Voss exhaled, his body shaking from the neural feedback. His hands clenched into fists as he watched the enemy fleet scatter, their once mighty warships now nothing more than fleeing prey. The Relentless, once a forgotten relic, had just rewritten the rules of war. Earth wasn't out of danger yet. There were still more fleets, more battles ahead. But for the first time, humanity had given the enemy something they had never known before. A reason to be afraid. The battlefield was silent. Wreckage drifted in the void, the remains of Zalzarthi warships spinning lifelessly. The Relentless hovered among the debris, its hull scorched, its systems taxed to their limits. Captain Elias Voss slumped back in his command chair, breathing heavily. The neural interface hummed in his skull, processing data, scanning the aftermath. His body ached, his nerves fried from the strain of direct link combat. But they had won. "Status report," he rasped. The AI's voice came through, cool and clinical. "Primary systems operating at 56% efficiency. Weapons grid cooling. Reactor integrity stable. Casualties minimal." A pause. "Mission success." Voss allowed himself a smirk. Mission success. Across the sector, Zalzarthi ships were retreating. Not repositioning, not regrouping. Running. He had seen it in their movements, in the sheer panic as they abandoned their dead and fled the system. The Relentless had shattered their illusion of superiority. "Captain," Lieutenant Sato called out from the comms station. "Incoming message from Earth Command. Admiral Reynolds wants to speak with you. Patching it through." The holoscreen flickered, and the stern face of Admiral Reynolds appeared. His usual demeanor, cold, calculating, was replaced by something Voss had never seen before. Shock. "You just sent the most advanced alien fleet in the known galaxy running like cowards," Reynolds said, shaking his head. "Son of a bitch," Voss chuckled, rubbing his temples. "Well, sir, we were due for a win." "You don't understand." Reynolds leaned forward. "You didn't just win a battle, you changed the war." Voss frowned. "How bad were our losses?" Reynolds exhaled. "Aside from your reckless ass, minimal, but that's not what I'm talking about." The screen shifted, showing long-range scans of the Zalzarthi retreat. Normally, when the aliens pulled back, they did so in an orderly, strategic manner. Not this time. Their fleet was fractured, scattered in different directions, warping out as fast as their drives could take them. "They're panicked," Reynolds said. "They've never lost like this before. They don't know how to handle it." Voss stared at the data. Fear. The mighty Zalzarthi had never considered humans a real threat. They had seen Earth as a stepping stone to greater conquests. Now, thanks to one resurrected warship, they were scrambling like cornered animals. "They're afraid of the Relentless," Voss murmured. Reynolds nodded. "And we're going to use that." Voss knew what was coming next. "You want us to press the advantage." "Damn right," Reynolds said. "High Command is already drafting an offensive plan. No more defensive battles, No more waiting for them to strike first. We hit them where it hurts. Voss ran a hand through his sweat-drenched hair. The thought of jumping straight back into another fight made his muscles scream in protest. But he knew they couldn't waste this opportunity. The Relentless had done the impossible. Now it was time to finish what they started. "Where's our next target?" Voss asked. Reynolds smirked. "Ever heard of the Zalzarthi homeworld?" The bridge of the Relentless fell silent. Captain Elias Voss leaned forward, eyes locked on the transmission as Admiral Reynolds's words sank in. The Zalzarthi homeworld. No one had ever dared to take the fight that deep into enemy space. Humanity had been on the defensive for so long that the very idea of striking at the heart of the enemy felt like madness. But after today, after the slaughter the Relentless had unleashed, it wasn't madness anymore. It was possible. Voss exhaled slowly. "You're serious?" "As a damn heart attack," Reynolds said. "High Command wants to push while they're still reeling. If we hit them now, we might break them for good." Voss leaned back in his chair, rubbing his chin. The neural link was still active, the AI feeding him silent calculations, probabilities, estimates of what such an operation would require. Every scenario ended in massive casualties. The deeper they went into Zalzarthi space, the fewer options they had to retreat. "This isn't just another battle," Voss murmured. "This is an execution." "Exactly," Reynolds said. "They showed us no mercy when they attacked Earth. They didn't offer terms, didn't accept surrender. They wanted humanity erased. We're going to return the favor." Voss glanced around the bridge. His crew was listening. They had fought tooth and nail to survive, and the fire in their eyes told him what he needed to know. They were ready. His gaze shifted to the viewport, where the remains of the Zalzarthi fleet drifted in silence. The once invincible enemy, now broken, humiliated. If they ran now, if they gave the Zalzarthi time to recover, this moment of fear would fade. But if they struck at the homeworld now, the war could end. Voss smirked. "I assume we're not getting a full fleet for this." Reynolds chuckled. "You already know the answer to that. Command's sending what they can spare, mostly experimental units, black ops teams. Unofficially, they don't expect you to make it back." Voss grinned. "Wouldn't be the first time someone wrote us off?" Reynolds nodded. "Your ship is the reason we're even having this conversation, Captain. The Relentless is more than a warship now. She's a symbol." He met Voss's gaze. "Make the Zalzarthi fear it." Voss turned to his crew. "You heard the man." He stood, feeling the weight of the moment settle on his shoulders. "Set course for the Zalzarthi homeworld." The bridge erupted into motion, officers calling out confirmations, engines roaring to life. The Relentless turned, aligning itself with the stars, preparing to leap into the unknown. As the countdown for the jump began, Voss closed his eyes and whispered, "Time to end this." The stars stretched, and the Relentless vanished into the void. The Relentless tore through the void at impossible speeds, a ghost ship racing toward the heart of the enemy empire. The crew worked in silence, focused, knowing what lay ahead. No human fleet had ever dared to enter Zalzarthi space, until now. Captain Elias Voss sat in the command chair, feeling the hum of the ship through his neural link. The AI fed him streams of data, star charts, enemy fleet deployments, possible engagement zones. It all pointed to one truth. They were heading straight into hell. "ETA to drop point?" Voss asked. Lieutenant Sato checked the readings. 6 minutes, Captain." The bridge was tense. The crew knew what was at stake. They weren't just fighting another battle. They were marching straight into the lion's den, with no guarantee of getting out. The Relentless had always been an underdog, a forgotten wreck reborn into something terrifying. But this mission, this was different. This wasn't about survival. This was about revenge. The AI's voice cut through the tension. Enemy sensor grid detected. Passive scans show long-range sentry stations ahead. Voss grimaced. Can we avoid detection? Negative. Their network covers all possible approach vectors. Stealth is not an option. Voss smirked. Good. Let them see us coming. Sato turned, eyes wide. Sir? Voss leaned forward. The Zalzarthi have never known fear. Not really. They've only ever fought from a position of strength. But now, they're afraid of us. His fingers tightened on the chair's armrests. Let's make sure they know exactly what's coming for them. Dropping out of FTL in 3, 2, 1. The ship shuddered as reality snapped back into focus. The Relentless burst into real space just outside the Zalzarthi home system. The planet loomed in the distance, a dark jewel wrapped in layers of orbital defenses and warships. Instantly, alarms blared. Enemy ships scrambled to intercept. The Zalzarthi were ready for an attack, but they hadn't expected a single ship to come roaring into their system alone. Sato's voice was tight. Multiple enemy vessels inbound, Dreadnought-class, cruisers, fighter squadrons deploying. Voss grinned. Perfect. The AI whispered into his mind. Captain, shall we begin? Voss cracked his knuckles. Oh, you better believe it. The Relentless surged forward, weapons charging. The battle for the Zalzarthi homeworld had begun. The Relentless roared into the heart of the Zalzarthi home system, a lone juggernaut against an entire armada. Alarms shrieked across enemy channels, their ships scrambling into formation, preparing to crush the audacity of a single Terran warship daring to challenge them. Voss felt their panic through the neural link, even if they didn't yet realize it themselves. They had always fought with overwhelming numbers, confident that no human vessel could stand against them. That illusion had been shattered. Now they scrambled, hesitated, unsure. They were learning fear. Enemy fleet closing in, Sato reported, her voice steady despite the chaos on the tactical display. 5 dreadnoughts, 10 cruisers, 2 full wings of fighters inbound. Voss smirked. Outnumbered and outgunned. Just the way I like it. The AI murmured in his mind, cold and precise. Analyzing engagement options. Standard tactics will not ensure survival, suggesting irregular attack patterns to disrupt enemy coordination. Voss nodded. Do it. The Relentless moved like no warship should, twisting and accelerating in ways that defied conventional maneuvering. Instead of engaging in a head-on slugfest, it weaved unpredictably, closing the distance too fast for the Zalzarthi to adapt. Their war doctrine relied on controlling the battlefield, maintaining range, overwhelming their enemies with superior firepower. But the Relentless was fighting like a brawler in a knife fight. The railguns thundered. A dreadnought exploded before it could even bring its shields to full power. The tungsten slug had punched through its main reactor, sending its burning husk spiraling into the void. The Relentless didn't slow down. Missiles streaked toward it, but Voss reacted through the neural link before the enemy even completed their firing solutions. The ship twisted, flares bursting, countermeasures scattering enemy targeting locks. The missiles detonated harmlessly in empty space. A cruiser attempted to cut off their path, moving to intercept. Plasma batteries, full discharge, Voss barked. The Relentless answered. A column of blue fire erupted from its cannons, carving straight through the enemy vessel. Molten debris scattered like shrapnel as the Zalzarthi ship split in two. 2 down, a dozen more to go, Sato muttered. Then let's keep going, Voss growled. The Zalzarthi fleet tried to adapt, spreading out, encircling the Relentless. But the ship moved too fast, struck too hard. Every time they adjusted, it was already too late. The once perfect coordination of their formations crumbled into desperation. But the battle wasn't won yet. A warning flashed in Voss's mind. The AI whispered, "Danger. Power spike detected." His heart pounded. "What is it?" Sato paled. "Something's happening on the planet. I'm detecting massive energy surges. It looks like—" She hesitated. "Sir, it's a planetary defense weapon." Voss swore. The Zalzarthi weren't just relying on their fleet anymore. They were willing to unleash their last resort weapon, the kind of devastation that could wipe entire fleets out in a single shot. The tide was turning, and not in their favor. Voss exhaled, his mind racing. The Relentless had torn through the enemy fleet, but if that planet killer fired, it wouldn't matter. They had seconds to act. "New mission," he said, steel in his voice. "We're taking out that gun." Sato's eyes widened. "Sir, that means—" "I know," Voss interrupted. "We're going down there." The Relentless banked hard, engines flaring as it punched through the remnants of the Zalzarthi fleet. They weren't done yet. They were just getting started. The Relentless dove toward the Zalzarthi homeworld, its engines burning white-hot as it pierced through the last remnants of orbital resistance. Behind it, the wreckage of an entire enemy fleet drifted lifelessly, shattered by the onslaught of human ingenuity and sheer defiance. But victory in space meant nothing if that planetary defense weapon fired. Captain Elias Voss clenched his jaw, neural link buzzing with incoming calculations. The AI flooded his mind with possible approach vectors, all of them equally suicidal. "Talk to me," he ordered. Sato's voice was tense. "Energy readings are spiking. That weapon is charging fast. Estimate 1 minute until full power." "Too damn fast," Voss muttered. "Give me targeting solutions." The tactical display shifted, highlighting the structure embedded in the planet's surface. A monolithic fortress, built into the jagged cliffs of the Zalzarthi capital. Deep underground, shielded by layers of hardened defenses. Conventional orbital bombardment wouldn't touch it in time. They had to get closer. "Prepare for atmospheric entry," Voss commanded. "Bring shields to max capacity. Weapons hot." The AI pulsed in his mind. Trajectory confirmed. Warning, extreme turbulence ahead. "I don't care." The Relentless plunged into the planet's atmosphere, the force slamming through its reinforced hull. The ship vibrated violently as the sudden resistance of air clawed at its frame. Plasma shields flared against the heat, the exterior glowing like a star as it streaked toward the enemy capital. And the Zalzarthi were waiting. Anti-air batteries ignited the sky with a storm of fire. Missile systems locked on, launching volleys of deadly projectiles. Surface-to-orbit turrets spewed plasma, filling the air with a deadly net of destruction. Sato gasped. "We've got incoming on all sides. There's no way through." Voss felt the ship shudder as the first impacts hit. The AI fed him dozens of evasive maneuvers, escape routes that would minimize damage. He ignored them all. "Full speed ahead." The Relentless accelerated. It didn't try to dodge. It barreled through. Missiles detonated harmlessly against its kinetic barriers. Plasma fire seared the hull, but the reinforced plating held. Every other ship in the Terran fleet would have been torn apart trying to brute force its way through an entire planetary defense network. But the Relentless was built differently. It was made to take a hit. It was made to survive. The enemy gun emplacements couldn't recalibrate fast enough. In seconds, the Relentless closed the distance, breaking through the upper defenses. The city below sprawled out in chaotic brilliance, towering spires of alien architecture, their capital in a panic. The Zalzarthi had never thought the war would come to their doorstep. They had never imagined they would be the ones losing. "Target locked," Sato shouted. "Firing solution ready." Voss locked onto the fortress. It was a behemoth of a structure, built to withstand orbital sieges for years. But it had never been designed for this. "Unload everything we've got." The Relentless fired. A full spread of high-impact kinetic warheads rained down like the wrath of an angry god. Railgun slugs followed, each one the size of a dropship, slamming into the reinforced superstructure at impossible velocities. Explosions tore through the cliffs, ripping apart layers of defenses. The planet itself shook under the assault. The ground-based plasma cannon, still charging, flared violently, then imploded. The shockwave shattered nearby buildings, sending debris cascading into the streets. Fire and smoke swallowed the capital in a maelstrom of destruction. The weapon was gone. The Relentless pulled up hard, engines screaming as it barely cleared the burning remains of the fortress. The ship punched through the stratosphere once more, climbing back into orbit just as enemy reinforcements began arriving. Sato exhaled. "Weapon destroyed. Mission accomplished." Voss leaned back, letting the tension drain from his body. His mind buzzed with the sheer insanity of what they had just pulled off. They had done it. They had struck the heart of the Zalzarthi Empire, and they had lived. But as the ship climbed into the void, he knew the war wasn't over. Not yet. The Zalzarthi weren't just going to lick their wounds. They were going to come back with everything they had left. And now, humanity had to decide. Would they wait for the next attack, or would they finish this war once and for all? Voss already knew his answer. "Set course back to Earth," he ordered. "We need to prepare for the endgame." The Relentless turned, vanishing into the stars. The Relentless streaked across the void, its hull still searing from the hell it had unleashed on the Zalzarthi homeworld. Captain Elias Voss sat in the command chair, his fingers gripping the armrests. His body ached from the neural feedback, but his mind was still sharp, still focused. They had struck the heart of the enemy. They had crippled their planetary defense weapon, turned their capital into a burning wreck. But the war wasn't over. Not yet. "Status report," Voss ordered. Sato ran a quick diagnostic, her voice steady but tinged with exhaustion. "Hull integrity at 70%. Shields are regenerating. Reactor core stable." Voss nodded. "Enemy pursuit?" "Negative," the AI responded. "The Zalzarthi forces remain in disarray. Tactical analysis suggests internal chaos within their military command." Voss smirked. Good. The enemy wasn't just beaten. They were broken. Their empire had been built on the belief of their own invincibility, on the idea that humanity was weak, that resistance was futile. Now, for the first time in their history, they had no idea what to do, and that was the most dangerous moment of all. Voss turned to Sato. "Patch me through to Admiral Reynolds. He needs to know what we just did." Moments later, the holoscreen flickered, revealing Reynolds' face. The Admiral looked older, wearier, like a man who had been holding his breath for too long. "What's your status, Relentless?" Reynolds asked, his voice tense. Voss exhaled. "Alive." Reynolds let out a slow breath, nodding. "We've been monitoring enemy chatter. Whatever you did down there, it worked. The Zalzarthi war councils are in chaos. Some of their fleets are pulling back, and we've intercepted distress signals from their outer colonies." Voss leaned forward. "And the rest?" Reynolds' face darkened. "Not all of them are running. Our long-range scouts just confirmed movement from the primordial wrath." A cold weight settled in Voss's stomach. The primordial wrath, the Zalzarthi's last remaining dreadnought-class warship. It had never seen combat because the Zalzarthi had never needed it. A relic of their ancient wars, armed with weapons that could tear apart entire fleets. If they were bringing it out now? "They're coming for blood," Voss murmured. Reynolds nodded grimly. And they're bringing everything they've got. The remnants of their fleet, their most elite warriors. This is their last stand. He paused. You changed the war, Voss. Now we have to end it. Silence fell over the bridge. The crew had been through hell, had fought impossible odds and survived. But the final battle was still ahead. Voss straightened. What's the plan? Reynolds exhaled. We're pulling everything together for one last push. Earth, Mars, the Jovian fleets, every warship we have left is converging for the final battle. We're meeting them head on. Voss smirked. You want a straight fight? Reynolds shook his head. I want a slaughter. Voss understood. The Zalzarthi had never offered humanity mercy. This wasn't about diplomacy. It wasn't about coexistence. This was about finishing them before they had a chance to rebuild. Reynolds locked eyes with him. And we need the relentless at the front, Voss grinned. Wouldn't have it any other way. Reynolds nodded. Get back to Earth, Captain. The final battle is coming. The transmission cut out. Voss turned to his crew. Their faces were hardened, ready. The war had taken everything from them, friends, families, entire worlds. But now, for the first time, they weren't fighting for survival. They were fighting to win. Set course for Earth, Voss commanded. The stars blurred as the Relentless made its final jump home. The last battle was about to begin. The Relentless tore through space, engines burning hot as it raced toward Earth. The ship had become more than just a weapon. It was a legend. Every surviving human warship was converging for one final stand. This wasn't just about victory anymore. This was about erasing the Zalzarthi threat from existence. Captain Elias Voss sat in the command chair, feeling the hum of the neural link. The AI whispered battlefield projections into his mind, but he already knew how this would play out. The Zalzarthi were coming with everything they had left, desperate, enraged. And humanity? Humanity had nothing left to lose. ETA to Earth? Voss asked. Sato's voice was steady. 15 minutes. The fleet is already forming up. We've got Mars defense platforms, Jovian strike forces, and every last Terran warship still capable of fighting. Voss exhaled. It was all or nothing now. A comm alert flashed. Incoming transmission from Admiral Reynolds. The holoscreen lit up with the Admiral's grim face. Voss, we just confirmed it. The Primordial Wrath is leading the charge, along with the remnants of their fleet. This is it. Voss grinned. Good. Let's finish this. Reynolds nodded. Battle plan is simple. We hold the line around Earth. The moment they commit, we counterattack with everything we've got. The Relentless is spearheading the assault. Voss smirked. Wouldn't have it any other way. The transmission ended. Sato turned to him. Sir, if we pull this off. We're not ifing, Lieutenant, Voss interrupted. His eyes burned with determination. We're winning. The stars ahead began to shift. In the distance, Earth's blue marble came into view, and just beyond it, hell itself. The Zalzarthi fleet was already here. Colossal warships loomed like harbingers of death. The Primordial Wrath sat at the center, a massive behemoth of alien technology, its weapons glowing with untold energy. Around it, dozens of enemy cruisers, destroyers, and fighter swarms darkened space. And facing them, the last of humanity. Terran warships, battered but unbroken, locked into formation. Mars's orbital defenses hummed with power, railguns and missile batteries primed. Every last ship that could still fly had come for this moment. It was time. AI, link me to the fleet, Voss ordered. A chorus of voices filled the bridge. Captains, pilots, fleet commanders, all waiting for the word. Voss leaned forward. They came to wipe us out. They thought they could break us, but look around. We're still here. He let the words sink in. And after today, they won't be. A cheer erupted across the comms. The Zalzarthi fleet began its advance. The Relentless surged forward, and the final battle for humanity began. The void between Earth and the Zalzarthi fleet erupted into fire and death. Humanity's last armada surged forward, meeting the alien invaders in a final cataclysmic clash. The battle was not a slow build-up. It was an instant inferno. The Relentless led the charge, plunging straight into the enemy formation like a spear through flesh. Captain Elias Voss felt the ship's fury thrumming through his neural link, the AI feeding him thousands of calculations per second. The Zalzarthi might have numbers, but numbers wouldn't save them from the storm of destruction humanity had prepared. "Railguns, fire!" the Relentless answered with thunder. Tungsten slugs, moving at near-light speed, punched through enemy hulls like paper. A Zalzarthi battlecruiser, built to withstand conventional energy weapons, crumpled under the kinetic impact. Fire and debris erupted from its shattered core as it spun helplessly into the void. Missile swarms filled the blackness, a deadly exchange between fleets. Terran warships weaved through the chaos, their advanced countermeasures detonating Zalzarthi torpedoes before impact. But not all of them survived. One of Earth's last carriers took a direct hit, splitting in half as its crew screamed across open channels. Voss ground his teeth. There was no time to mourn. "The primordial wrath is locking onto us," Sato reported. "They're charging their main weapon." Voss felt a cold spike in his gut. That dreadnought was the single most powerful warship the Zalzarthi had ever built. It hadn't fired a shot yet, but if it did, entire sections of the fleet would be wiped out. The AI whispered in his mind. "Warning. Energy buildup consistent with mass disruptor technology. Impact is unavoidable at current trajectory." Voss grinned, even as the void burned around him. "Then let's make sure we're not there when it fires." The Relentless dove. It shouldn't have been possible for a ship of its size to maneuver like this, but the experimental thrusters screamed against inertia, twisting the warship through an impossible series of vectors. The primordial wrath unleashed its fury, a beam of raw annihilation wide as a city, carving straight through the battlefield. A dozen Terran warships vanished in an instant, but the Relentless was already gone, repositioning itself behind enemy lines, railguns and missile batteries flaring to life. Voss saw the opening. "Focus fire on the Dreadnought's reactor core. Target weak points. Rip that thing apart from the inside out." The Terran fleet answered with everything they had. Railgun slugs, torpedoes, mass-driven artillery. It all converged on the primordial wrath. The Zalzarthi flagship tried to activate its shields, but they flickered under the Relentless assault. Then break through. A Terran destroyer, already mortally wounded, made the ultimate sacrifice. It rammed the Dreadnought's port side, igniting secondary explosions across the hull. Voss saw the moment of hesitation, the faltering in the enemy's movements. "This is it," he whispered. The Relentless powered forward, delivering the final strike. The railguns fired one last shot, straight through the Dreadnought's core. For the first time in history, a Zalzarthi flagship died screaming. The primordial wrath detonated, its core overloading in a blinding eruption. Shockwaves tore through the battlefield, enemy ships scrambling in disarray. The Zalzarthi, once proud conquerors, were now nothing more than scattered survivors, retreating in horror. Voss exhaled. "Status?" Sato's voice cracked with emotion. "They're running, Captain. We won." Silence filled the bridge. For the first time in years, it wasn't the silence of defeat. It wasn't the silence of waiting for the next attack. It was the silence of victory. The Zalzarthi Empire had fallen. Humanity had won. And the Relentless, once dismissed as junk, was now the most feared warship in the galaxy. The war was over. But Captain Elias Voss knew one thing for certain. humanity was just getting started.